Well, I am joined by Priscilla from the All in All podcast. Welcome to the episode. Welcome to
Thank
the podcast.
you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so amazed that we're doing this.
Yes, so I'll give a little bit of background. So I was scrolling on YouTube one day and I came across a clip of you and your husband, and you guys were talking about kind of like what it's like being in the diaspora in the US or just in the Western world, taking care of all of the responsibilities, also having children. And that dynamic really caused me to pause because I was like, oh my God, I don't hear people talk about this often.
Yeah.
And I remember I know I wrote like a super long comment, but I was just so intrigued by the conversation.
Yes.
Um, Tell us a little bit about your podcast, why you started it, and some of the type of conversations you guys have on the platform.
So yeah, the way we started it, was always an idea, but it took us so long to even get on because of all the competition was out there. Um, so then when we finally decided to do it, my husband and I speak and talk about the most important things, just like taking a deep dive into our self-reflection and self-development and really just like spiritual awakening.
Yes.
And most of the people around us just kind of like, don't really sink in with us on the stuff that we talk about, and nobody was relating to us. So we were like, maybe let's start a podcast, and start talking about these things. And I know for sure and for a fact that somebody else out there is going to join in and be like, I'm thinking the same way as you. So that's what was kind of like the from the get-go, that was the motivation. And here we are today.
That's awesome. No, that's
Yes.
that's super awesome. I had floated the idea around very early on, many, many years ago, actually, at this point, of doing a podcast with my husband, and it
Yeah.
just wasn't the right timing. I don't rule it out completely. I think there's so many conversations that him and I have just between the two of us that I think would be beneficial for people, married people, people thinking about getting married, the dynamic between him and I. I was born in the US. He was born in Nigeria. He
Mhm.
came out here when he was in his like early 20s.
Mhm.
We met, and, you know, we've been married almost 10 years this December, which is
Oh, congrats.
crazy. That's actually crazy to say out loud because 10 years
Bro,
is a whole decade.
that's a
And
decade. Yeah.
I know. I know
Congrats.
it's a whole decade, and so I definitely would love to get an episode or two with him and just have some conversations and reflect on what the last 10 years has been like, right? Being
Right.
married, raising children, chasing the American dream, and all of that in between. So
Yes.
I definitely was inspired when I saw your guys' podcast because I was like, oh, I don't see this very often, especially from those from back home.
Yeah.
Tell us where are you originally from?
So my husband and I are originally from the Congo, but
Nice.
when I migrated to the US,
Okay.
from Utah originally, and he migrated to Quebec, Canada.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
then, yeah, so then we was like, we've always, had something going on ever since we were little. So
Yes.
we kept contact, and when he migrated, because I came like in 2014 and he
Okay.
migrated in 2018. So we kept contact regardless, and we were like, oh my goodness, he's finally here. So then when
Yeah.
I went to meet him, we were like, yeah, we are in a relationship, but let's not make any like big moves until we see each other because we've
Yes.
grown.
Right.
So yeah, and then like as soon as I came here to like visit, he was like, "Oh yeah, 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 we gotta
That's
lock
my
this
girl.
in.
That's my
This
girl.
is
We
it.
here. We're
This
locked
is it."
in.
So that's
I
why
love
we
that.
like we locked it in, and we dated for like another year or so, and then about a year in 2020 he engaged me, and then by 2022 I believe. 22. Yes, we did our civil wedding.
Nice.
So still waiting on that. I have two kids now.
Congratulations.
I'm like, I can't plan a wedding.
I know.
It's so
It's hard
stressful,
with
you
kids.
know?
It's hard with, I mean, weddings in general are very, very stressful. And then when you have kids, I have two kids as well. I have two boys.
Oh
My
yeah.
husband just told me like recently, it was like we babysat for my nephew and my niece, and he was
Uh-huh.
like, I want one more. And I said, oh, really? You want another kid? Really? Oh, okay.
You,
Very interesting.
you
I said,
now,
you can babysit whenever you want, you know. You don't
you
have to have
now,
another baby. You can
right?
babysit.
I still want more though. I have two boys, so I'm still gonna kind of like go ahead and aim for like
Girl,
a girl. And yeah, if I have another third boy, it's a wrap. But if I
for
have a
sure.
girl, we're giving it one more try for a fourth, and then we'll call it God thank you and lock
Oh,
everything. Yeah.
well, I hope you get all of your heart's desires. And I'm not ruling it out completely, but I think right now, maybe next
Yeah.
year, but not
Maybe
like
next
right
year.
in this
We'll think
moment.
about it next
We'll
year.
think about it. We haven't ruled it out, but we'll think about it. But we had a conversation a couple weeks ago. We had a
Yeah.
really good conversation, just kind of like a discovery call, and we came up with this topic of talking about, what it's like to pursue the American dream, but also honor your roots and your heritage and where you come from. And
Right.
is there really an opportunity to do both, right? So my first question for you is, do you think a part of the disconnect in pursuing the American dream, coming from the Congo, myself, I wasn't born in Nigeria, but my
Right.
husband was born in Nigeria. My parents were born in Nigeria. I went to Nigeria every year as a kid for the holidays,
Right.
learning the culture. Is it a generational thing, right? Rather than a cultural thing?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of how they see us, how they perceive the things that we're pursuing, the things that
Mm-hmm.
we want. Is it that generationally they just aren't hip with what's going on today? Or do you think
Mm-hmm.
that it really is our culture that places limits on us?
Mm. I actually think it is our culture. Why do I think that? I believe when most of us are Christians, can I
Mm-hmm.
say? Most of us are Christians, and the beliefs that are taught in the church or at school and carried on by everybody is very much giving like one mind.
One perspective.
And it is come from Africa, go abroad, go and work really hard and earn money,
Yes.
or go abroad, go to school for the big mostly the
Careers.
big careers, and then get a good job in that career, what is it,
Field.
in that career field. But again, that would be very hard because first of all, we already come from Africa, especially the people that come from Africa, like mid age. It's already
Mm-hmm.
hard to lose the accent. You're really gonna be here trying so hard to compete with
Assimilate.
everybody in the
Yeah.
same field, but it's like you're never really gonna catch on. So then
Right.
it's like nobody's gonna encourage you in the culture or in the community to really like go for starting your own business. How
Right.
about try something else? Instead of focusing so much, I need to work really hard, like somebody's chasing you to work
Right.
so hard so you can take the money home so that the people home can celebrate that. And it's like
Right.
it has been everybody thing really. And if you think
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, like, oh, I'm gonna start my own business, I'm gonna go my way, my pace, get things done my way, it's like they look at you like, what are you doing?
Right.
That's
Do
not
you
what we do.
do you think at all, like, and I hear you and I agree. I
Yeah.
think I think it is culture. I
Hmm.
think just in Africa as a whole. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many different countries in Africa, but I know in the Nigerian culture we suffer and face the same dilemma, right? It's like you got to become a doctor or you got to become a lawyer or you even if you want to go into finances, you may be an accountant, an engineer,
Right.
but they really put a big emphasis on some of those top professions and not
Mm-hmm.
everybody falls into that. But my
Mm-hmm.
question to you is, do you understand the why? Like, do you kind of understand why coming from such a faraway place that when you get to what they would consider kind of like greener pastures or the promised land, that they would want to set you on this very narrow path?
I believe it's the why. Maybe I don't know the why, but I think it's the watching too many movies. Because you
Mm,
have to be a little bit delusional to just think I'm going to send my kid from my home. Not that you're underestimating them, but I'm going to throw them um in this field, in this culture, migrate them here. They're going to go
mhm.
to school for the big field, example, lawyer, where you have to
Mhm.
like study like the law of the United
That
States.
piece.
You have to forget basically the law of your country because this is a different territory we're talking about.
Right.
They have a
Right.
different way of operating things. So you send your kid over here to learn this new way. And then once she graduates, do you know how hard that's gonna get to get a job? It's gonna be so hard. Who's gonna take them to that next step? Not you. You have nobody to refer them to, because most Americans, or really just everybody overall, it's about who you know.
Who you know.
It's about who you know. So who do I know coming from Africa? In the entire African community here, nobody's going to introduce me to anybody that knows any lawyers to even help me study for the things. You have
For
to
the
like
bar.
literally, yeah, you have to literally grind on your own so much that it would be so difficult. And yeah, I just believe like it's because of the competition that also exists between Africans.
Mm.
At first, you know, the first, like the second, one person makes it, it's like it becomes, what can I say? It becomes like this person is not gonna make it too, or because they made it, it becomes like, how can I say it? I lost my train of thought, but no,
Is
it
it
becomes,
more so?
it's like it
Is it
gets,
more so? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
you're good. It just becomes like so much more difficult because our parents believe that when we go for the big careers, we are going to make them the money, or the success is basically like the family's glory.
Right.
It's not more so for you. They're not
Mhm.
interested on how you're going to get there or who's going to take you there. They just expect you to go get it done and
Figure it out.
come back for their glory, because they can tell their neighbors in the market, or they can tell their neighbors at work that my baby did that. And guess what? The money comes back to them so you can support them. And it's mostly just feeding their ego. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
I definitely agree with that in part. I have a
Yeah.
slightly different perspective, and I think you and I talked about this when we had our discovery call, and it's something that I don't talk about with everyone, obviously, because not everybody will be able to identify with that concept.
Yeah.
But as a parent, right? Like I'm a parent now, you're a parent. So as a
Yeah.
parent, I think one of the things we can all really agree on is that we want our children to have a life that we deem is fitting, right? Whatever that looks like to you as a parent. And so, be it, limited thinking or growing up in an environment where that's all you know. It's like, I know that a doctor is going to make money. I know that a lawyer is going to make money. I know that an engineer is going to make money. And selfishly, they say, these are the careers that I want you to pursue. Maybe out of, and this is what I think the why is,
Mm-hmm.
for stability, right? Because no
Right.
parent wants to send their child into the world, the
Mm-hmm.
big world that they don't have control over, and wonder how they're going to feed themselves, wonder how they're going to put a roof over their head, wonder how they're
Right.
going to survive, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it was probably when I was in my mid 20s where I started to understand this concept, which is like your parents only want what's best for you. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it comes off as like very rigid, right? It's very, I want it to be this way. You should just listen to me because I know better. Not really taking into account what you're talking about, which is like we're a whole person that has like our own desires and aspirations and skills, and they may
Yeah.
not fit into that bucket. But I think the why is important. And it would be fascinating to hear from our parents or our parents' generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would probably align with like this idea that we just want our children to be successful,
Right.
and we can't guarantee that success. But if we send them in a direction that has proven time and time again to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can approximate that for them,
Right.
right? And it is selfish. It really is like for their glory so that they can tell their friends. But
Right.
also, when they're no longer here, right? Like
Right.
if, because I believe that we do go to heaven, right? If they're looking down, they'll be able to say, my child is taken care of and they're okay.
Yes.
And there's a larger conversation to have there. um and then my next question to you is, what if we're not outgrowing these ideas that our parents and the generation before us put on us, right? Have you ever considered that it may be that they just didn't have the tools? Like nobody ever, they didn't see what we see
Mm.
here in the West.
I was just actually talking about that earlier today. Um, the tools, that's a little bit different, because for me, I believe I was actually really given the tool, because
Mm.
I did not struggle to get like a visa or have to pay my flight ticket to even come to the
Okay.
US. I lived in the refugee camp for a
Okay.
couple years, and from there we migrated, like by the settlement,
Yes.
with UNHCR. So if you look at it from the Bible, as most Africans would,
Yes.
isn't this the promised land that literally God brought you to? And do you
Mhm.
think that God brought you to that promised land just for you to limit yourself or put it in your mind that I was not given an opportunity to learn this or evolve or to grow or whatever? It's like literally that was the opportunity. Now it's up
Mm.
to you. They cannot manually script everything for you. The
Wow.
opportunity for me was literally getting me out of the camp, Cindy,
Yeah.
to bring me to the United States without paying the
Wow.
visa
That's powerful.
or the flight ticket. And that's a lot of us. What more do you need them to do? You know? So
That's
that is the opportunity that most Africans, I'm not going to say all of them because I know some do struggle to get the visa and all that stuff.
yes.
But the most of us that were given that opportunity coming at this young age, you need to start thinking, well, I got this opportunity. What's next? Yes, it's okay to get the 9 to 5 job to feed yourself, like pay the current situation, but you cannot not think outside of that. You cannot necessarily think that I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna get another job until I get another third job to support myself, and when my kids grow up they're gonna go to big schools, get big careers, and then come back and support me. Because it's like, no, you're setting yourself up for failure, and your
Mhm.
kids are going to grow up to seeing the cycle that you're
Mhm.
creating. They're going to also think, oh, I can just go to work, and when it's not enough, I'm going to get another second job, and when that's not enough, I'm going to get a third job.
Good job.
It's hard for them to outthink that, oh, I didn't see my mom go to college, okay, so I'm just going to go to college and be the first to finish
Right.
college in my family. Yes, some of them think that, but that's like 3%. The rest of the 97, we're back to the I'm just gonna get a job. When the
Yeah.
first job doesn't work, I might get a second job to support myself, forgetting that you were given the ultimate golden ticket to make it in the American dreamland. That was
Yeah.
the promised land that they promised you. So work
That's so
hard.
powerful.
Work hard. Get yourself in that out of the cycle. And it's just like so sad we don't have that mindset.
That is something you said that I have actually never really thought of it in that way, which is the opportunity really is that's the thing. Like that's actually the thing. It's not the you go get a job because we can all get jobs, right? Like
Right.
jobs are there to be gotten. Now you may not get the job that you want, but you can get a
Right.
job. You can get something that'll put, food in your pocket. But the actual getting on a plane, going far away from home, and being in a land where really you could do whatever you want, circumscribing it to just these three little buckets is really a disservice to the opportunity that you're given. And I never looked at it like that. I didn't look at it from that vantage point. I was looking at it more so from like, a parent's protection. But at
Right.
the same time,
That's valid.
yeah, like at the same time, and the concept that two things can be true, right? I
Right.
think that there's opportunity to guide,
Mhm.
guide a child and say, when you get there, these are the places, these are the things that you can do
Right.
that I can attest to, right? Like I've seen other people do it and they've been able to feed themselves.
Right.
But I do think that there is a responsibility maybe now on us, right? Now as parents for our children to push that conversation further just a little bit more when our children come of age and want to explore the fullness of who they are. Because I do think that in the African culture, by and large, we don't actually really become confident in who we are and our true capacity
Yeah.
until we're like late 20s, early 30s, maybe even mid 30s for some of us, because
Yeah.
we've been living really honestly to like make our parents happy. A lot of us, like,
Yeah.
I'm included in that, right?
Yeah,
And,
me
you
too.
know, it's interesting. I guess if you let's just say we rewind 5, 6, 7 years ago,
Mhm.
and you were given that same opportunity, and there was no expectation on you, what course or what journey would you have wanted to chart? Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, girl. Because Cindy, when I first got here and I got in touch with my parents back home, I was 14 at the time, and they were
Mm.
already feeding me the careers they
Mm.
expected me to do, which was you need to be a nurse, you need to be a doctor. So, Cindy, in my years of in between 16 and 21, I was forcing myself to go to school for medical assistant, to be a medical assistant because that like or do CNA in order to
Mhm.
go to like nursing
The next
school.
level. Mhm.
Right. And I wasted so much time. I wasted so much time doing CNA, forcing myself into the school of medical assistant to do the program. I even finished the programs, got
Mhm.
the certificate, and I was like, I can't even stand the hospital.
No. I
I
know.
want to help people, but just that's not my way
Yeah.
of helping people. So one day I really just sat down and thought, I was like, no, I'm giving up that dream.
Wow.
Cross everything. If I had somebody that told me, when you grow up, you can be anything you wanted to be, and literally watered me with
Mm.
that motivation and encouragement of letting me know we love you regardless of everything, regardless of who and what you become.
Yes.
Just make sure you don't disappoint yourself. I think
Yes.
I would have made
Yourself.
yes,
That's a big one.
I think I would have made the decision of doing what I'm doing now when I was like 18. I could have started then. That's how deep I feel this the African parents don't really don't set us up for success. This is how strongly I feel. I'm like, no,
Oh
they're
goodness.
setting you up for their glory. Yes,
Mhm.
it's good to do whatever you can, but to introduce your kid, showing them the right path. But the right path is not the idea of your path. The right
Mhm.
path is what they're going to become in order to not disappoint themselves. Because if they don't disappoint themselves, they will not disappoint you. They'll be a
Wow.
better version of them and will come back to you and glorify you anyways.
Of
You
course.
gave birth to me. Of course, it's going to glorify you
Of
at the end
course.
of the day.
Wow, Priscilla, that is such a powerful, like, I felt that in my bones because I feel like that was my story. I feel like that is my story. So when I was a very young girl,
Yeah.
I was always very outspoken. I was always the person who would come into a room and I would make conversations. I gravitated towards people who were always older than me. And I always wanted to
Nice.
start a podcast. I would
Yeah.
say probably in 20, let's say circa 2010, 2011. I was running a
Really?
business. Yeah, I was running a business. I had a business called First Class Fashion. It was a fashion tech startup. It didn't really last long. I pivoted from that and I went into product development, created a fragrance called First Femme.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in this office building. We had an office building in Calabasas at the time. Prior to like Calabasas being a popular place. I was just building in Calabasas. My parents lived out there, still
Yeah.
live out there. And I was like, I want to start a YouTube channel. And I was like in my early 20s, very, very young. And I was like, I want to start a YouTube channel. And you know what I told myself? I literally talked myself out of it every single time because I was like, what are my parents going to think? Like, they're going to be like, oh my God, like, go to school.
Go to school, girl.
Go to school. Go to
You
school.
better go
Focus
to
on your
school.
books. And I, it's interesting because it took me having to get married, go to law school, have my children, lose myself, like literally forget who I was as a person, completely lost myself, hit rock bottom
Mm-hmm.
before I said, you know what you just said. Anything that I do that I truly, truly believe in and that is that is a representation of me is going to glorify my parents because it'll be my authentic version. It'll be something that they will see and be like, wow, that is my child. She's living fully in everything that she's meant to be. And yes, it may not be what it's supposed to look like,
Right.
but it's good because it's your child and you'll literally see the fullness of them.
Right.
And it took, I mean, I hate to say wasted, but like I talked myself out of it for more than a decade. Can you imagine if
More
I
than
would
a
have started a
decade.
decade ago?
Where you would
Like
have been now?
where I would have been. And you know, that's really a call to action for anybody who may come across this video.
Sure.
Like number one, it's never too late to start. But number two, you have to get to a point in your own life and whatever that
Yeah.
takes, whether it's your journey is 1 year or it's
Yeah.
10 years, but you have to get to a point where you realize that it's your life and you are the only one. You are the CEO of your life, whether it turns good or it turns bad, it falls on you. Have you had a conversation with your parents about this topic at any point?
Oh, girl. Uh,
Like, that's a no.
yeah, no, I have not actually. Um, no, I have not actually, because I feel like my situation is actually a little bit different. I'm gonna be
Okay.
a little bit vulnerable right now. So
Yes.
with me on my end, even till now, 2025, whenever I say I want to come back home and visit, I have not been in Africa since I left. Um, so whenever I say I would like to come back home, and visit my siblings, see what I've missed, all the ideas of the delicious food, I want to taste it. I want to come back home. You know what the answer is? There's nothing here that's so interesting. You should probably like buy as a house first, build as a house, and then before you come back. What are you coming back for? That's the he already sends you a message that wait a minute, these
And
people don't care about what you got going on, the stress you got going on, what rock bottom you're hitting. They don't care. As long as you make them look good in the light of their enemies or their neighbor,
yeah.
they're fine. That's all for them. That's all they want. So
Wow.
then I'm like, yeah, I'm not really gonna have that conversation. I'm gonna leave the nursing stuff to the side. I am
Mhm.
still gonna finish my university
Yeah.
journey. I'm still gonna finish school. I'm still gonna do all of that, but I'm gonna do a different career that I wanted to do in the first place. And I'm gonna do things my way because as you said, it is my life,
It is.
you know? As long as I don't disappoint myself, I
Mhm.
think they will be happy with the result because they will know this is authentically me. And one
Wow.
day they'll get to see that and actually sit back, hopefully, and realize that, hey, we actually, we made a human being, but she became her own mind.
Yes.
And they're going to hopefully be proud to just see how, you know, the journey of me getting there. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think we're not gonna talk about that until we get there.
You know, I can respect that. You know,
Yeah.
I really respect that from for a couple of different reasons. One, I do believe that each of us have a responsibility to ourselves, like you
Yeah.
said, to make yourself proud, not disappoint yourself, but also like you are the master of your journey. So when we defer, you know, to our parents
Mhm.
for, you know, who we should be, what we should be, all of these things, you know, not only are we giving them the power, but I don't think that we realize, right, that
Yeah.
I don't think our parents, like, let's take a step back. So, yes, our parents want us to be successful, right? I think
Right.
at the core of it, and what I also learned in time is that realistically, I don't really think they mind how. I think they just want you to be successful. And I
Right.
think if you show up and you're like, "Hey, mom, like, I know you said nursing, but look, I just got this media deal and they're paying me $2.5 million
Right.
and I have my own studio and me and my husband we're doing well and the kids are good." I highly doubt your mom is going to turn around and say, "But I told you to do nursing."
Hey,
Right?
you'll be
That's
happy
never going to
either
be
way.
exactly. That's never going to be the conversation
Right.
as long as you show up, right? And you've reached and amassed the level of success that you think is good for you, I think it's important. And I also like that you're not going to have that conversation prematurely because unfortunately, the way that our culture can be is they will try to talk you out of, you know, the thing that you've built up so much courage to do in the first place.
Right.
So sometimes it's good to protect that. You
Wait,
know, it's good
right.
to protect that
I
for
think
sure.
wiser. It's a wiser.
Yes. And let's talk a little bit about I guess speaking up, right? Because like you're not going to have this conversation with your mom, but adults by and large, like when we're growing up, we're kind of we're taught like you don't really talk back, you don't really speak your opinion, right, in the company of
Yes.
adults. What do you think informs that? Like why do we in the African culture have this ideology that like younger people or younger adults or people who are coming to age are not really asked or respected or sought to give their opinion about matters in the company of adults?
Hmm. I think my husband and I talked about this one time, and we were like, he said something that it was about accepting the truth. Most of us in the African culture, our parents don't know how to take the truth because of the ego that they carry with them. So
Mhm.
then you could be saying something that is so valid, but because the ego is so high, they will not receive it. It will make them feel less than. Like, who are you to talk to me like that?
Right.
Instead of seeing it from a point of view of my kid has a brain of their own that is so powerful, and it just needs to be guided and watered the right way so that it grows into the person that she's trying to be.
Right.
But instead they will look at it from the perspective of it's hurting their ego, and then will be too emotional to see it from a reasonable side. I feel like that's what it is.
I agree. I remember well, it was a little while ago, but I remember the first time, and I lived away from my parents for a while. So
Yeah.
I lived in my parents' home, obviously, until I went to university,
Mm.
went away to university. And so I was living on my own. And I think during those years is when you really start to kind of like, okay, like, I have to do these things and I have to, and my parents were not strict in the sense that like they didn't let me do things, but you had to respect the household. You had to respect
Yeah.
the rules. Like, you're not going to embarrass us. We have a standard. My mom would always say that there is a standard by which you carry yourself.
That's
And
sweet.
I grew to like that over time. It wasn't something that I liked when I was a young kid growing up, but I grew over time as I matured to understand and appreciate it. But
Mhm.
I remember the first time I actually, I guess I'll call it spoke back
Mhm.
to my mom.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because my mom has always been, if anybody who knows my mom knows, she's a personality. Like, she is just very strong-willed. She has a wonderful heart, but she does not bite her tongue for anybody or anything for any reason. And she had asked me to do something. I won't give the particulars, but she asked me to do something, and I didn't want to do it. Like, I
Yeah.
just, honest and truly, just didn't want to do it. Didn't feel like something I wanted to do. I was kind of like annoyed that she had even asked me to do the thing. And
Yeah.
I remember, crying to my brother. I called my brother and I was like, she's always telling me to do the thing. I don't want to do the thing. And he's like, so just tell her you don't want to do the thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't just tell her I don't want to do the thing. He's like, well, why
Right.
not? I'm like, well, I don't know. I just can't. Like, there's no reason why I just can't. And he's like, well, look, if you're so adamant about not doing the thing, you have to learn how to communicate that. He's like, I'm not telling you to go and yell at her and be disrespectful,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to find a way. You have to summon your voice and come to voice and tell her you don't want to do the thing. And don't just stop at like, why you don't, I mean, you don't want to do the thing. Tell her why. And I
Why?
called my mom up and I'm like, Mommy, I don't want to do the thing. And she goes, Nah, I don't care whether you want to do the thing or you don't want to do the thing. Please. I have somebody on the line. Can you hurry up and get off this phone? Go and do the thing that I asked you to do. All right. I'm like, oh God, come on. I cried. Like, I literally cried. I was like, and then from there, I grew resentful because I was like, oh, and because I'm a girl, and if it was my brother, then they wouldn't do that. And I remember when I finally broke down and I told my mom, I'm like, you always just tell me what to do. You don't ask me my opinion. You don't care whether I want to do or I don't do. And it took a while. I would say from
Mhm.
that first conversation, it probably took another 3 years before my mom actually listened when I said I didn't want to do something. And it was a struggle. And I was an adult. Like, I was actually an adult at this juncture. So to have that out of body experience as an adult, I don't think a lot of people who grow up in the West can really relate to that, because I would defer to my parents for a lot of things. And it was very scary. It was actually a really scary thing. Like, I would avoid certain conversations, or I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to go around for certain things because I just didn't want that pressure.
Right.
And I know you've lived away from home longer, but
Yeah.
has there ever been a decision that you've wanted to take, or maybe you and your husband have thought about, and you're like, I probably should talk to my mom about this, but decided that you weren't because you kind of anticipated the outcome?
Yes. So with our wedding, we already know
Mm-hmm.
because we all know that well, not the right way doesn't mean that's the right way, but the traditional way is you get engaged
Mm-hmm.
and then you do the traditional wedding and then you do the white wedding and then you
Yes.
go to your home
Yes.
with your husband and then you start having kids.
Yes.
And before that, I was like, so yeah, this is
This
just
is
not
not how
how
it's
I'm gonna
going.
go about it. Because I was finding it that my most of my family is in Africa and I'm
Mm-hmm.
here because not adopted, but I was in a foster system, so my white parents, because I'm still in their life right now. So it's like
Okay.
my white parents are here, but they don't know that culture.
Got
So
it.
speaking to my family in Africa was kind of like, oh my goodness, how am I going to tell them the big news that I don't want to do the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can just like think about it another time, and I just want to go in and move in with my man and all that stuff. And I was just like, yeah, this is just not gonna work. Maybe I'm just gonna do it. I was so scared actually. I was so scared. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know, I don't know." So we ended up doing my husband's dad ended up going to Africa to my parents' house and
Okay.
giving like the bride price. So we
Nice.
didn't do the traditional wedding, like physically,
Yeah.
but that part was like, initiated and that was over with. And then I got pregnant. I think I was already pregnant at the time. So then
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how do I tell my mom now that I'm pregnant? I'm not having a
Mhm.
wedding.
Hey, God. See, that type of fear.
So then, like, my father-in-law like sat me down, and my mom talked to me. They're like, "You should just even pregnant at all. You're going to disappoint us. You're going to make
Oh
us look a
God.
certain way. You should have the wedding." And I'm like, with a big belly. And my father-in-law
Mm.
was like, "Why do you want the Kim Kardashian wedding anyways?" And I'm like, "I don't want a Kim Kardashian wedding right now. If I can't afford what I want, I'm not gonna do it right
I
now."
said that. Yeah.
Like my husband already worked so hard to give the bride price. I was just like, you guys got the money. Like I don't wanna spend and waste more money. Let me invest it into something I actually want to with to build with him. And that is most definitely not a wedding right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did not go very well. But then my mom then came around after I already gave birth. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, you did things like me anyways. I got out of it." And I was like, "Why did you support me to begin
They always do that. They all
with?"
honestly, they always, I'm not saying always, but I
Yeah.
think there's a tendency for, African parents to be extremely strict
Hmm.
on certain things, even though, because my mom's experience was very similar. My mom got
Yeah.
pregnant before she had her white wedding.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I mean, in culturally speaking, like, once you do what we call it in Nigeria, we call it the knock. So you do a
Right.
knocking, right? Or an imbanku. So you go, your husband's side of the family or the man's side of the family will go and meet the woman's side of the family.
Right.
They'll have a, informal meeting. They'll set a
Mm.
date. You bring, they tell you what exactly it
What's
is
the
that you need to
list of what
bring and all of those
right.
things. And they pay the bride price. So all of those things can happen. And I think once you do that, that's really an intention, right? Like, I have an
Right.
intention. I saw something that I like. We are coming to ask for this person's hand in marriage. And I think you are very, um you're very different than most women, where like most women are going to want to prioritize the wedding before
Mhm.
the marriage. You know, like I want the wedding because the wedding is like the display that everybody gets to see.
Everybody gets to see.
But girl, let me tell you, marriage is nothing like the wedding, okay?
Like the
Nothing
wedding.
like the wedding. And that is something that I'm really passionate about, which is, I think that in our current generation,
Mm-hmm.
there is this overemphasis of like, wanting to get married,
Yeah.
but really not understanding like
Understanding.
marriage is so tough. And you can
Right.
say it, but it's like I don't think you really understand
Right.
until you're standing 10 toes in it.
And
And
sorry,
no, 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 go ahead.
I wish our elders would be a little bit more vulnerable with us
Absolutely.
before we walk our children into this path.
Absolutely.
It's not bad to get married and have all the wedding and all the parties, but it's not all about that. They make it all about that before mommy actually sits you down as a daughter and say, Mama, what you're getting yourself into, you cannot easily walk out of.
Ooh, I have chills. I actually got goosebumps just now.
You know, you cannot easily walk out of. This is not your boyfriend where you just say, we're breaking up, I'm taking a break. This is a commitment. This is your life partner, somebody that will be your one and only.
Mhm.
And as a woman, you have to understand when you have children, you will lose yourself. But this is how to find yourself. This is how to. I wish somebody talked to me, and
Wow.
yet I'm just out here deluluing and
Trying
figuring
to figure
all
it
this
out.
thing out. And I'm like, am I the only person that goes through this? Like, women around us don't talk about what it is that
We
we're
don't.
going through because we're
We
like
don't.
so quick to judge and being so like belittling. And it's like, no, I really just wish our elders like instead of a bridal shower, how about we just have a sit down and talk to me the reality of what marriage truly means?
Mm. Girl, you struck a nerve just now. So I have this concept of creating a platform called the Culture Academy, and it really
Yes.
is to touch on topics just like that. So
Yes.
I don't think my mom and I had a formal conversation. I think it was probably a couple of days before my wedding. We're driving, maybe coming back from like fitting the dress, and she gave me like three pieces of advice. She's like, make sure your husband always has a hot meal and you cook for him. Never tell him no to sex. And one other thing. And that was really it. My aunt actually was the one who gave me, I think, probably one of the most solid pieces of advice
Mhm.
before I got married. And she said, whatever you want your husband, like whatever type of man you want him to be, you have to set that tone early. Don't go in there and do all the things to make him happy. And then 5 years down the road, you want to stop because you've set that precedent. So you need to be very careful and not in a way that's like, don't do, but just be mindful of the things that you're doing. Be mindful of the tone that you're setting because that is what he's going to come to expect of you. And if you're not careful, you will do all of these things, performing, trying to be this perfect wife, only to find like you could have just been yourself. You guys could
The
have
whole
figured out
time.
how to, yeah, the whole time you could have figured out how to have
I've been
a
working on
sustainable
that
marriage.
already.
Exactly. But also, I second what you're saying. I think that the women in particular, and I actually have had this conversation. My mom and I have
Yeah.
become very, very close. And I can, at my big age, I can talk to my mom about virtually anything.
Hmm.
But what I will say is, I've told her, I'm like, your generation failed us because the reality is that we went into marriage really thinking it was a fairy tale, like really thinking that it was going to be a cakewalk and like everything is just going to be so easy. And I can say now, like almost having been in here 10 years, it is single-handedly the hardest journey that I've ever gone on. I don't think there's one conversation that can really summarize or like
Right. Right.
approximate what it means to get married to a person, but I do think that there are some tools and some conversations and some realities that they should use to level set us before we come into a marriage with
Yeah.
a man. And I didn't get that. Like I had to figure it all out on my own, and I couldn't cry to my mom. I couldn't cry to my dad. So not only are you navigating a marriage that is new and you've never done it,
Hmm.
but now you can't tell anybody. because you don't want to go give that burden to your mom, and
Right. You don't want
so
to
it's
make them look like, oh, I'm failing at
exactly
this. You want to look like Wonder Woman that got this whole thing figured out. And yet inside, it's like, oh, I'm on a battlefield, child.
fighting for my life every day.
Every day.
Dodging bombs that are going off. And marriage is, I love the conversation of marriage because I happen to be somebody who really, really believes in it.
Mhm. Me
I believe that it takes time to get to the good part.
too.
For a lot of us. I mean, there are some women who may just be blessed, and I haven't met them or seen them in person, but just go in and it's perfect and it's always perfect and he does
Yeah.
everything right and they do everything right and they live in perfect matrimony. That's
Mm.
great. I'd love to see it, but for the rest of us who are just normal and we're in relationships, it's something that is truly a gift. And the real gift from it is when you go through the ups and the downs and you come out on the other side stronger, more
Stronger.
fortified. I really, and I think that our generation is, we're doing a disservice to the institution of marriage because we get into it and then we get out of it before it has its time to
Right.
really,
Because all
you
of a
know,
sudden we just feel like I got a choice. It's all up to me. I can get out anytime. And it's like we're not really understanding that this is a decision. We're just going in it with the butterflies and the love and my friends will like this. Well, in America, this is what they're doing. So now I'm like, no, baby. No, baby.
not
Relax.
at all. What would you say is your, like, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in marriage
In
thus far?
marriage,
Mm-hmm.
being selfless and
Mm. Break that
that
down. Break that
that
down. Break that down a little bit.
that
Hold on.
is something I really have learned, that you come in here and it's really not about you, baby. It, like, before, I used to think it's all about me. My feelings are so big. Like, if I feel like I need attention and affection at a certain time, I'm supposed to get it. Like, that's the whole point why I'm getting married. And I used to fight with my husband all the time, like, because I'm very sensitive and I'm very affectionate. He's the very most opposite of me.
Opposite.
So then
Yeah.
it's like we really had difficulties coming together He had to learn that just because I'm insensitive, not insensitive,
You're
just
sensitive.
because I am, a little bit more careless and not affectionate, it doesn't mean I should not give her the affection
Got
and be
you.
more sensitive with her. And with me, I used to be like, just because I'm so sensitive and I'm so affectionate, it doesn't mean I'm supposed to get it every single time and every day and every moment. It means
Yeah.
sometimes he needs time to himself. It
So,
means sometimes he needs his space to be who he is. And I had to learn that happiness is your own responsibility, not your partner's responsibility. You need to make you happy before you go kill someone's child so that you can have the happiness in the world. It doesn't exist. So that's
girl,
the lesson. Being
girl,
selfless.
you just said, I had this conversation with my sister-in-law today.
Really?
Literally today. So this is how I said it. And I think all of us, wives probably go through this at one point or another in our relationship. And it's not because, like, it just is what it is. Like, we lose ourselves, we have to find ourselves again. It's just a part of the journey.
Mhm,
I think everybody has that. But I told her, I said, I made a choice late last year,
mhm,
right? I feel like I hit what I considered my rock bottom. I just was not happy
mhm,
anymore. I wasn't happy with, I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I showed up. I didn't like the way I talked to my kids. I didn't like the way I talked to everything about me. I just didn't like. I just got to a point where I was like, I'm just not happy anymore. Like, I don't know
yeah,
what it is. And I'm searching for it in my husband. I'm trying to get him to
mhm,
do the thing, and it's not working. And he's like not giving me the tension, and it's just not there.
yeah,
So I made a choice. I said, you know what? Because I'm a solution oriented person. I'm somebody
yeah,
who, if I feel something long enough and it bothers me, I have to transition into, okay, so what can I do about it? Because I
Get
can't feel like this for
bottom of
forever.
it.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
eventually I got to figure it out. So I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do, because there's only two options here. I can sit here and I can complain about everything that is going wrong and what he's not doing and all of these things and still not get it, right? I can complain for 6 months straight
Yeah.
about everything that I want him to do that he's not doing, or everything in my life that I don't like, and still nothing changes.
Mm.
Or I can do for myself and feed and pour into myself the things that I feel like I need to make me happy. And at the very least, if nothing else changes, I will feel better about what I've poured into myself. Like, some results going to come out of that, right? So instead of me focusing my attention on him, I need to start focusing my attention on me. Because let's just say, boom, I wake up 6 months from now, right? And I've been complaining and nothing changes. What happens? I'm still unhappy, probably more unhappy than I was 6 months ago, because I've been complaining about something and nothing has changed. So
Mm.
now I'm probably talking to myself like, you probably don't love me because I've been telling you X, Y, or Z and blah, blah, blah. And I literally just had a day. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to figure out what my life should look like if I
Mm.
want to be happy. That means start a podcast. That was one of the first things I said I needed to do. I need to start a podcast. I need to have an outlet. I need to leave my house once a week and go have a conversation about things that are important. And I think conversations are super important for people to have daily amongst each other.
Mm.
And that was honestly the most impactful thing that I did. I chose to be happy regardless of whether anybody was making me happy.
Right.
It is your choice. It is your responsibility to make yourself happy.
Right.
You know? So it's what would you say to your younger self? So 10 years ago, you were 10 years younger. What would you say to yourself in the pursuit of your goals, your dreams, marriage, having children? What advice would you give to yourself? The 10-year-old, the 10 years younger self of you. What would you say?
Mm. I think I would tell myself, take it easy on yourself, because
Mm,
it's all going to work out for your best interest. It's going to work itself out, because I'm such a, like, let me figure it out. Let me fix it. Let me get this. Let me do this. So controlling that it can be, that I often beat myself up so much for something that I cannot accomplish or did not accomplish on time or a certain way. Um, so really just stop comparing myself with other people, and like the perfect life that it's supposed to look like, and really just focus on what's on my plate, what I can control, and really just giving myself time and being a little bit more kind to myself, honestly.
mm,
Because I think we show so much compassion for other people when they're trying to figure themselves out. Like, you just told me, like, I hit rock bottom and I was trying to figure my happiness out, trying to see what it is that I'm doing wrong that I need to correct. And me looking at you, listening to you, I'm like, yeah, girl, like, you got this. But for me to do that for myself, I find that a little bit difficult. So I feel like
ooh,
that's something I need to give myself, and that's something I would tell myself as a kid, and be like, yo, take it easy, be kind to yourself. It's gonna work itself out.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
know this is a little bit off topic, but you said something that sparked a thought. Um, if you were not you,
Hmm.
like you were not Priscilla,
Yeah.
right? Would you be your friend?
That's a good question. Oh, girl. You know what? I think I need to really think about that. You
It's
know,
powerful, right? Like, it's really a powerful
you know
question. Like,
what,
I when you were talking just now, I just thought to myself, like, that's the litmus test. If you were not you,
bro?
would you be your friend?
Oh my goodness gracious. You know what? It would have to depend on what year,
And
because
that's the truth.
I think I think the Priscilla that is the now, I believe I would be my friend right now. The Priscilla that was as 5 years ago, I think that was all crowd. It was all about who can I adopt to be on my team? Who can I have around to replace the family that I'd never had? It was more, I feel like a little bit more desperate, and I was not really like genuine or taking my time with friends. I think I was just like, as long as I got friends.
Mm.
But now I feel like it's harder to make friends
Yeah.
because now I'm really like, oh, if I'm gonna make time for you, that means I really like you. That means I'm really a loyal friend. But if I'm like, yeah, girl, I'll see you at the birthday party next year when you invite me. That means,
Next year.
yeah, that means I'm really not into you, and now I'm
Right.
just like really keeping up, like the image of,
Appearances, yeah,
yeah, right.
for
But
sure.
truly inside, I'm just really like, I'm really not feeling you. And these days, I'm really like, I need friends that are going to uplift me, understand me, people that I'm going to kind of like take deep dives conversations instead of just empty talk.
The
And before
surface,
it
yeah.
was really just that. And now I feel like, yes, I believe I'm a good friend now. I would be my friend now.
I love
Before,
that.
no, I'm not even gonna lie. No.
That's the question that popped into my head as you were talking, and
Really good.
I think that I agree with you. I think this version of Cindy is so elevated that I can say, like, if you would have met me, by chance
Yeah.
a year ago, I still would have been me,
Right. Just.
but there were some things about me that needed to be refined, I
Mm,
think. I think that I've always been a decent friend. There are
yeah.
things about me though in my friendship that I've had to correct. I'll give you an example of one of them.
Uh-huh.
I had a friend, we're no longer friends anymore, so I would say a former friend, and there was a time when there was something that I felt was detrimental to her health, right? It was
Mhm.
detrimental to her health, and I kept bringing it up. I kept bringing it up. I kept pushing the issue.
Yeah.
And she told me, like, I don't want your advice in this area. It's really a no-go area. Like,
Yeah.
just leave it alone. And I would not leave it alone. And I rationalized that at that time as like, well, I care. And I'm your friend. And that's what friends do if they
Mm,
care, right? But
right.
that is not friendship, right? Like friends are the family that you choose, right? And
Yeah.
friends really need to honor and respect people's boundaries. And I don't think that I had a really healthy respect for her boundaries. So I
Mhm.
can say in retrospect, I probably wasn't the best of friends to her. I
Mhm.
think that there were other areas in which I showed up. If she needed to talk, I'm always available. You need me to pull up, I'm pulling
Yeah.
up tonight. What do you need from me? You need extra
Mm,
couple extra dollars? I got you. In those areas I was always solid. But understanding that you're going to meet people at different points in their journey and you
mhm.
have to respect where people are, and I think I had to learn that, and I think I finally gotten to a space where I don't feel the need
Mhm.
to add if it's not welcome. Like, I don't even want to give unsolicited opinions anymore. Like, I just don't really care to do that because it can
Yeah.
oftentimes be more damaging than it is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I actually really get that point. I like that. I really do. Before, I feel like I was just like so much empty talk, so much drainage. And most of the time, I feel like most of my friends or the people that we're not friends anymore, as you,
Hmm.
jeez,
It
we're not
happens.
friends anymore with a lot of them. Um, because most of them say that I was too dominant.
Oh, you get that too?
So yeah, everyone was like one person, okay, but all of them, I'm dominant, I'm controlling. So I really had to take a deep dive into myself and say, so what type of friend are you looking for? Because all the friends you have are mostly just kind of like your minions or like your followers. They're not more like so your friends. They just are like, oh, it's so cool to be around you. Like she's a vibe. But when it's like when you need something or you need emotional support, they can't be there for you. Why? Because you were just out there being the how
The
can I say
leader,
it? The
really. You
leader of the
lead.
pack.
Yeah.
So busy acting like the leader. Yeah, I'm planning this and that. Let's go. Everybody's always on a role of following what you're doing.
Yes.
It's like that doesn't make a good friend because whenever they are going through something, I'm always like, so this is what you should do.
Exactly.
I didn't care to hear what, oh my God. I didn't care to hear what they wanted, how they wanted to go about their lives. I only thought that I'm such a good friend to you, as you said. I have the best interest in you, I mean, for you. And I think this is what you should do. And most of them would be like taking my advice, and I'm like, I actually don't know better either.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know better. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm too young trying to figure this
Figure
out.
it out.
But I'm out here giving grown up advice, and I'm like, what if I actually like convince them to to do something that was really like, like not even for them. But yeah, so I'm like, I do have a good talent. Being dominant is not necessarily bad.
No, not at all.
Right. It just
I
has
don't
to
think
be
it's bad.
invested in the right way and
Hmm.
guided with wisdom instead of immaturity. So yeah,
I like that.
I'm
No,
very
I like that. I don't think being dominant is bad.
right.
I think there is a way to hold space for times when you do need to speak up and you do need to be
Yeah,
assertive and you do need to be decisive. I like decisiveness. I like things that are plain, on their
yeah,
face. I can look at it and I can identify what it is. And I think that there's also a time where you kind of just need to look and watch and see what's going on and not always feel compelled to share your viewpoint. And I think that's something I had to learn. And maybe it was because I lost this particular friend or the
yeah.
friendship didn't, end up, you know,
Working
lasting.
out. Yeah.
But I think taking stock of that at least once a year and asking yourself, the version I am today, if I wasn't me,
Hmm.
would I be my friend? I think that's a really good litmus test to see like what things you need to work on. But
Yeah.
I do have a couple more questions kind of on the topic, the original topic.
Yeah.
I want to know from you, how can African women like ourselves,
Hmm.
how can we you like if we've made it, right?
Yeah.
You're on your way, you've started your podcast, I'm doing my podcast, I'm doing all the things that I've said that I wanted to do. How can we use our success as a stepping stone, right? How can we pour back into our community? How can we share and show that it is okay to do things a little bit differently? We may
Hmm.
not necessarily be living the dream that our parents like ironed out or wrote
Right.
out for us, right? But we're doing something. What
Yes.
do you what is a way in which we can use our stories, our platforms, the things that we've accomplished for the people who don't see it that way?
Right. And with that, Cindy, I think that's exactly what we're doing. We are speaking out by being the example and taking on that responsibility and that crown and
Yes.
that load, putting it on our back and saying that I'm going to share my thoughts, my authentic me with these people. I'm going to share my journey, and I'm going to vulnerable, vulnerably
Hmm.
speak about my experience, my real life experience, something
Yeah.
that they are not used to seeing on TV because it's script, something
Right.
that they're not used to seeing in their community. But now I look like them, I'm one of them. They're
Yeah.
going to see me walk this path, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm going to be just the right testimony that they were waiting for to really like click it in their head that, hey, if one of us, the girl that came from the camp, could do something like this, can think
Mhm.
like this, I too can step out of the cycle and think like her, or even better.
That's
Because some
awesome.
of them are actually smarter than us, but they are in a shell, or, like driven by so much fear.
You're
And if they maybe see someone that came from the camp, because seeing like the big stars, that's one thing, because you don't really know, like, that's a star. But seeing
exactly.
someone in your position, someone I went to school with, the city that used to live down by the street,
Hmm.
it's like, it's a different motivation. It's like, if she can do it, I can do it. She's talking about things that touch me directly, you know and it's not something that it's not something that you're going to hear by, a lot of friends in the African community friend group. So now
Mhm.
it's like maybe going to encourage them to speak to their parents in a
Mhm.
much more direct way. If like this is something I don't want to do, this is not a career I'm trying to achieve, then it's like, I know this girl that has also gone through the same thing as me. Let me try to go this route and see just what it's going to give me. Because we're already telling them that it does not mean that you're gonna get it all the time. It does not mean that you're gonna be 1000% on the right path the first try. It just means at least give it a try and get out of the cycle. Because once you start thinking different, things and different doors will start opening for you. That way you're like, it's going to push you and motivate you to think differently. So just by
Absolutely.
leading by example.
I love that. No, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
A follow-up question to that.
Mhm.
So, how do you deal with the voice in your head that tells you from time to time, do I really know what I'm doing? Like, is this really worth it? Like, is this what I'm doing
Yes.
really all worth it? Like, how do you combat that? Because I'm sure you've had that. I've had those moments where after I finish recording an episode, or maybe I just finished editing, or I just finished uploading, and I'm like, am I wasting my time? Like, or
Mm-hmm.
is this really
Mm-hmm.
like, is this really it?
Yes. So you know what, actually, I watched a video on TikTok one time, and it was like, we all have fear, okay? The little
Hmm.
voice, the little second thought, the little holdback, that's the fear speaking, okay? And
Yeah.
when the more you listen to that, the little voice in your head that is so doubtful, that is like second guessing everything, that's when you're supposed to now like continue. Yes, I hear what
Yes.
you're saying in my little head or the little voice. So you're like, I'm going to confront it by acknowledging it. I hear you. But because I know that that's the fear in me speaking, I'm going to actually carry on with exactly what I've decided to do, because that means I'm on the right path.
Absolutely.
You sometimes do something and really you just like to start beating yourself up about it. Maybe this post is not really good. Maybe I'm not really speaking. But guess what? I'm human. So what? I'm still gonna go through with that decision, and then over over in time, I believe that little voice will then become just like your self comforter, you know,
I
because you're
agree.
going to train it to think positively
Yeah.
instead of operating from fear. Because if you operate from fear, we're not getting anywhere, girl.
No,
But
you're right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right. I think that little voice in your head, because I felt it yesterday. So yesterday I happened to be out at Starbucks and I saw a social media personality that was in Starbucks, and I was walking. I think I had went out to go like get something for my car, and I was coming
yeah.
back in, and the person was going out, and I saw them, and I was like, "Oh my God, is that so and so?" And so my sister was with me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I think that's so and so." And I was like, "Man, I wish I would have like said something. Like I would have loved to bring them on the
Introduce
podcast."
yourself. Yeah.
They left already, so they're already outside. So I'm like, "Okay, is this a wrap?" They come back inside. I'm like, oh my God. So my
It's a
sister tapped, she's like, oh my
sign.
God, they came inside. And I'm like, oh my God. But like, what am I supposed to say? Like, just walk up to them and just say hi? Like, what? Just go. Before I could even think about what I was going to say, I'm standing in front of this person. And I'm like, hey, I'm such a fan of your content. I've been following you for a while. I'd love to bring you on the podcast. They asked me, what is the podcast about? And what that demonstrated to me, like I literally could have talked myself out of doing it because I wasn't ready and I didn't have the right pitch. But the worst thing that could have happened, and the worst thing that could still happen, is they just don't come on or they say no.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have, if I didn't be courageous enough, I would call it courage, right? Courageous enough to walk up and put myself out there,
Yes.
then I would have missed out the opportunity 100%. There's still a possibility that the person may come on the podcast, which is awesome.
Yes.
And that fear, I believe, is your sign that you need to just do it anyway.
You need
Like
to
you just
just
have to
do
do
it
it anyway.
anyway.
You have to just do it anyway. And I've felt like that so many times. I've recorded an episode and been like, oh my God, I didn't like my answer. Oh my God, why didn't I say that? Or what was I thinking? How come I couldn't recall that? Because a lot of times, especially when it's legal commentary,
Yeah.
like for example, we did a impromptu episode on Friday kind of breaking down our thoughts on the P. Diddy trial. And I don't like my specialty is not criminal law. So I'm not sitting there with all the rules memorized in my head. Like that's just not
Yeah.
my area. But when I watched it back, I was like, we literally we're so hard on ourselves. We criticize
Yeah.
ourselves so much. The episode looked fine. I mean, it was fine. Like it literally was fine. I mean, sure, there could be some editing done, but it was fine all in all. And so the
Yeah.
reason why I asked you that question is because there are people who are going to be watching this.
Yeah.
And we've talked about starting a podcast. We talked about kind of creating your own American dream.
Yeah.
What is, in your opinion, the American dream? Like, what is the American dream today?
The American dream is, I believe, going for something higher than your expectations.
Mm.
We are all like, it is good to expect, okay, I'm going to get, like, go to school, get a job,
Mm-hmm.
do this and so training, get a certificate for that training. And if you start going outside of that, but what if I did this? It does not mean it's guaranteeing me success, but you're risking.
Mm-hmm.
With every decision you make, you are putting a risk out of, let's just see what it's going to give. Because you have one life, you have no script
at all.
No script.
Impromptu. We're just here.
If you don't do all the things that is in your head, or at least take a good shot, even if it's not going to go through, but at least guess what? Now you can go, when you pass on, you can tell the angels like, yeah, I did that. I got $1 million house, and yet I was working at Amazon. I did that. You know what I mean? It's just like expect nothing. Just like go out of your way.
Expect nothing.
Go out of your way. You see somebody that you're like, this is a good opportunity. Your fear, put it to the side. That low thing in the head, talk to me later. I'm gonna go introduce myself. I'm gonna take this risk. That's really the American dream. Even the president of the United States doesn't know what he's doing. I think he's just gambling. I just think he's gambling. Whoever's going to fear
he's got the confidence for it. He's like, you know what?
We're
just gonna do it.
Because people will bow down to you when it's like, oh, you actually took that shot.
Yeah.
And you actually made it. That's what the whole point is. Like, the American dream is just really risking it, expecting nothing. Because what you got to lose anyway? What you got to lose, baby?
I love that so much.
You can rebuy another one.
So I got a tattoo on my wrist. It says "No Fear." I got this when I was 20, maybe 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And in my household, obviously, tattoos are like taboo. It was a thing. But I was going through a period of my life where I was afraid. I was afraid of. So my initial got out of college. My dad was like, "Don't take a break from school. Don't take a break. If you take a break from school, it's going to be really hard to finish." And I was like, I don't want to go to law school right now. I want to do business. I want to travel the world. I want to be young and free, like Carrie Bradshaw on Sex and the City. Yeah. So I didn't go to law school. He was right. But two things can be true.
Yes.
Two things can be true. If I didn't, I would have never met my husband. Because I met my husband on that time away from going to school. I actually met him during New York Fashion Week, February of 2014, thereabout. Yeah. And I ended up going to law school. It was probably 10 times harder than it would have been if I just did it right out of school. But the moral of the story is I was afraid of telling my parents I didn't want to go to law school, to the point where it took me about 3 to 4 months before I finally mustered up the courage. And in that time frame, I went and got this tattoo, and I said, this is going to be my reminder that every time I'm afraid of doing something, I'm going to look down, I'm going to say, no fear. You cannot have any fear but the fear of God. Anything that you want in this life, if you don't try, you don't get it. So the least you can do is just try.
Hunt, you don't eat.
Exactly. That part right there. If you don't hunt, you don't eat. So that's, for me, like what you said is also what I think the American dream is. I think the American dream is literally the vision of your life that you want, that you go for. That is the American dream, because there's no other place in the world that you
Mm-hmm.
can do that, where you can get a camera, you can get a computer, you can get a microphone, and you can have your own platform. You literally can do anything under the sun.
Yeah,
You can be a lawyer
you,
and a doctor if you want.
you
You could
really
literally be a lawyer and a doctor. You could literally say, I want to start a clothing store, or I want to do hair, or I want to paint murals. I want to do whatever in your mind, whatever that vision is for you. That to me is what the American dream is, and not selling yourself out, not living a life that is empty. And
Mm,
it's just riddled with confusion and chaos because you're afraid. Like, that fear is really what holds a lot of people back. You're afraid
right.
of failing. Failure is the sweet spot. When you
Right.
fail at
It's a
something, right?
lesson.
When you fail at something,
Mm-hmm.
it's instructive. It teaches you. It shows you what your limitations are, your weak spots, where you have to improve,
Mm-hmm.
the things that you need to do to be better for the next time. As long as you get up, as long as you say, even if it takes you 5 years and you say, you know what, that was hard. I'm not going to do that again tomorrow, but I'm going to go back out there again,
But
but
I'm
just
gonna
not right
go
now.
back out. Yeah.
And you go back out. Then you've won. That the journey is the fun part. That is the part that we're all doing this for. It's not when you get to the end or when you're in the career. That's not it. It's the
Mm.
journey.
It's the journey.
The American dream is in here. It's literally anything that you say you want to do. If you're in America, you have the ability to do it. And that is what's special.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more, girl.
This has been such an honor, Priscilla.
Yay!
You are a true testament, and this conversation is a true testament to you. All you have to do is ask. I didn't know you a couple months ago.
I
I
know.
just saw your content online, reached out, and here we
I
are.
know.
And so that is a part of my American dream, because I said, you know what? I want to have her on the podcast. And here I am having you on the podcast. And I thank you so much for coming and spending this time and having this conversation. I hope we have many, many more. There's so much more to unpack. I appreciate you. For everybody who's watching, if you got to the end of this episode, please make sure that you subscribe to the Hear Me Out podcast and the All in All podcast. We
Yeah.
will be doing a part two that will be on their platform, but you can check this out. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment, let us know what your favorite part of this episode has been.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for
Thank
watching.
you.
Till next time, stay
Bye.
blessed.